Hi everyone, my name is Charlie and today I have my November TBR. As with all of my previous TBRs this year, some books that I intended to read last month didn't end up getting read or finished. One book that I did not finish was The Last Chronicle of Barset by Anthony Trollope, and I am actually 200 pages through this book. What happened was that I started reading it and I didn't take it to Whitby with me because I was planning on beginning the book Mr. Scarborough's Family while I was away, and I didn't want to be reading two Trollopes at the same time. Weirdly, this is actually the one that I have preferred out of the two, but I am going to wait till I finish Mr. Scarborough's Family and then go back to this one. However, what I will say is that I don't know whether I'm going to finish reading this book in November or whether I'm going to read it over November and December. I only have 600 pages left, but I don't want it to be a book that I rush. And last night I had the epiphany that maybe I prefer reading Victorian novels over more than 1 month. When Emily of Novel Novels and I read The Way We Live Now together, we read that over 2 months, and I'm wondering if that's just the way that I process Anthony Trollope or hefty Victorian novels. So that's why it's still on the list and I still want to read it before the end of the year, but it might be something that takes me the next 7 weeks as opposed to something that I'm going to try and get read all in 1 month. Then a book that I definitely want to try and get read that I didn't get read in October is The Moonlight Market by Joanne Harris. I did nearly throw out all of my reading to get this one read, but I thought it probably best to finish some of the other ones from my shelves. I didn't want to rush this one. I honestly feel like this book is going to be a new favourite, and maybe that's something that's putting me off from reading it. It just feels very autumnal to me, and I know what sort of day I want to be reading this on, and that sort of day involves very few stresses, and unfortunately at the moment I have a lot of stress going on with the need to find a new car, the second cozy crime novel where I just received my edits back from Dane, so I need to go through and change a few more things. And so the mood that I'm in just doesn't feel conducive to reading what I'm hoping is going to be a new favourite book. And a book that has been on so many TBRs this year is Outrageous, the story of Section 28 and Britain's battle for LGBT plus education by Paul Baker. I really enjoyed Fabulosa when I read that a few years ago, and I say that every single time that I put this book on a TBR. It's the topic. It worries me. I'm very scared of the topic of this book because I know how angry the idea of Section 28 makes me, and also how some people behave when it comes to LGBT people in this country at the moment. I know that this is a piece of history and that I need to know more about, and I know that I enjoy Paul Baker's writing. He writes in a conversational, accessible style, at least he did in that book. So I thought it was non-fiction November, and I don't have much non-fiction left on my shelves, so I put Outrageous there. And then another book, which I bought alongside Outrageous a few years ago, is And the Band Played On by Randy Shilts, which is politics, people and the AIDS epidemic. Like the Anthony Trollope book, I don't think I'm reading this entire book in November. It's a plan that, because it's rather hefty, to read it over the 2 months. Also, with it being a bit of a hefty subject matter as well, I want to dedicate some proper time to it, and so I'm going to be taking my time with this book. I don't even know that I'm going to finish this one by the end of the year. My entire plan with reading this has been to read it slowly over a great length of time, and that could be 1 month, it could be 7, as long as I get it read. But I want to start it in November. A book that I will also be reading slowly, because I read this book based on the day, is The Christmas Chronicles by Nigel Slater. For a few years now, I have started this book on the 1st of November and finished it on New Year's Eve, and that is exactly what I'll be doing. This is the first year that I will also be reading The Christmas Chronicles alongside another Nigel Slater book. I have been reading his book, The Kitchen Diaries, all year, reading 1 month's diaries for each month, reading the specific day on the specific day that it pertains to, and I'll be doing the same with The Christmas Chronicles. I enjoy this book. This actually helped inspire a poem because the author gets into the history of Christmas as well and talks about pantomime characters, and one in particular helped inspire a poem. And I think for Poems, Prose and Pints at the Button Warehouse, for our Christmas version this year, I might be writing about another pantomime character. Then we have a book that I found on top of one of my bookcases and remembered that I'd been loaned this book and should probably get it read because I think the owner might want it back. And this is The Emperor's Babe by Bernardine Evaristo. My friend Joy lent me this book last year, having been inspired from this book to figure out how to write her own verse drama. And so she's been working on this novel that also includes poetic verse in it as well for a year. And so she was looking for books that were told in the verse form. And so she read this one and then recommended it to me and gave it to me. And I still haven't read it yet. So when I found it, I was like, yeah, we got to prioritise that one. Similarly, a couple of months ago, one of my regular customers came in and she was talking about the book that she was reading and said to me, had I read it? And I said, no, I've been looking for that for ages, but I can never find the first book in the series. The library always has several books by the author from the series, but doesn't have the first. And she said, well, I'll be finished with it tomorrow and you can have it. And that book is Whose Body by Dorothy L. Sayers, the first book to feature Lord Peter Wimsey. I recall watching the TV show of this when I was younger. I used to stay at my grandmother's for the weekend and she would constantly have ITV3 on. And so I got to see a lot of the classic mystery programmes. When I met Leo and Sarah a couple of years back in Manchester, Sarah recommended a specific book from this series and I haven't got around to reading it yet because I was looking out for this one. So now I've got it and I want to read it. I'm hoping because it's short, I'm going to enjoy it. I usually go towards genre fiction in autumn. So I've talked about how I like fantasy in autumn and winter, and another thing is a crime novel, which is a strange one because sometimes I like crime in summer, but this year I've been feeling like this specific sort of crime from this era is much more suited to November and December, in my mind at least. And I think it comes from a few years ago when I did an Agatha Christie vlog where I read a few of her books in winter. Anyway, Peter Wimsey, we're going to be getting to this one. We have a continuation of a series, and I didn't know whether to include this in the TBR, but I have been wanting to read this book, and that is The Shadow Rising by Robert Jordan, which is the fourth book in the Wheel of Time series. I've read the first three and enjoyed them. Apparently this is where the series veers off away from Robert Jordan's original Middle-earth inspiration, and he begins to create this expanded world of his own. It's nothing to do with Middle-earth, it's just when you read those first three books you can very much see the influence of J.R.R. Tolkien on the author. And I've said that I have read that the author specifically did that because he wanted people to feel comfortable with the fantasy he was creating. I sped through the third book, reading 600 pages over 2 days. I don't think I'm going to be doing this book because this book is 900 pages long, and I don't know that I have much time off this month. It's going to be a very busy couple of months now because we are heading towards Christmas and everybody at the shop is trying to get their holidays in. Indeed, there is a dispute about a specific day in a fortnight's time that I'm supposed to have off, and my manager might also want it off at the same time. So we don't know what's happening there. But it does mean, like, including all these hefty books on my TBR might be a mistake. But I really enjoy the Robert Jordan books, and I do want to read another one before the year is out. And then, when I met those booktubers at the weekend, the books they were buying and the way they were talking, I was like, I need to start reading some more serious books. I need to read some more fiction that actually came out in the last year, because I couldn't tell you what I've read this year that came out in the last year. So I picked two books up off my shelf that were rather slim and serious. So the first one we have is Parade by Rachel Cusk. I enjoyed the Rachel Cusk that I read a few years ago, and I've discovered that I seem to like the books that came from later in her career than earlier in her career, because I didn't like Saving Agnes. But I'm not sure what this book is about. Midway through his life, an artist begins to paint upside down. I'm pretty sure that's the first line of the book. In Paris, a woman is attacked by a stranger in the street. A mother dies, a man falls to his death. Couples seek escape in distant lands. The new novel from one of the most distinct writers of the age, Parade sets loose a carousel of lives. It surges past the limits of identity, character and plot to tell a true story about art, family morality, gender and how we compose ourselves. Yeah, so we'll see. from the start, it's like sounding the tiniest bit pretentious, but then I guess Arlington Park was a bit pretentious and I enjoyed that. So we'll see. It's slim enough. It sounds serious enough. How many pages is it? 198 pages. $16.99 this cost for 198 pages. I tell you, that's the Cusk tax for you. And then we have Rare Singles by Benjamin Myers. And this one has been inspired by Ben Reeves Good, who I said that I had bought this book, and he informed me how much he enjoys Benjamin Myers as a writer. I'm sure there are others. This is an author I've been meaning to read for a while. I liked the sound of this book when I first heard about it a couple of months ago, and it's one of the very few books that I've purchased this year that have actually come from this year, and so I've got it and I want to read it sooner rather than later. So that's Rare Singles. Indeed, I'm hoping that this is going to be a bit more of a calmer, quieter read than all of the other books that I've got planned. That's me, them's the books. If you would recommend that I prioritise any of these books over others, then please do let me know in the comments. What will you be reading in November? Feel free to let me know that as well. I hope that you have enjoyed this video, because until next time, that is all.